In 2001, when a number of people got together to look at a different way to develop software, they didn't just say, I don't want to do this anymore, let's just do something different. These were people that had a lot of experience in software development and were well schooled in a lot of other disciplines and sciences. So when they came up with the Agile, you'll see that a lot of the background of Agile is based on some real strong science and disciplines. I'm going to go through 4 of them that are probably most notable. Lean manufacturing, an approach that's used to minimize or maximize the amount of work not done. And they do that through building small batches. That theory, that lean theory, is very much applicable within Agile software development. How can we incrementally deliver value over time? And let's do it in small chunks. So in Agile, the concept of delivering a sustainable pace in software in a regular flow of delivery, those are all based on lean manufacturing. The second one is maximizing or optimizing throughput. How do we get work started and through the pipe and done on the other end as quickly as possible? We want to minimize the amount of handoffs. Every time we hand something off, it's an opportunity for latency or loss of information. So by minimizing those handoffs and reducing the amount of queuing that goes on, we will move things through the pipe faster. The third one is control systems, creating feedback loops. How do we take something that we're being produced, pull it away from the everyday work, and examine it, and then bring that learning back into our next work? We have lots of defect loops in manufacturing environments. All 3 of the concepts, lean manufacturing, the queuing theory, and the control system, come from a lot of work that was done particularly in the automotive, but mostly in the manufacturing environment, about how to produce better products faster with less waste. That's why you hear a lot of people talk about lean and agile. A lot of the underlying principles and values of lean and agile are very, very similar. The fourth one is organizational design, and this is really around the individuals and interactions over tools and processes. There's a lot of communication methods talking about the warm versus cool communication, face-to-face, transparency, teamwork, leadership. All of the organizational design things that go in are leveraged because we are not dehumanizing people through a heavy process-oriented methodology. So what they did was they said, how can we take these types of things that are working in other environments and build them into our Agile approach? So we've said that Agile is iterative, but it's still a project. And by definition, a project is a temporary endeavor to achieve a unique outcome or product. So in the large, we are still running a project. But in the small, we are iterating over and over again, getting closer to the end result of that project as it emerges. So what this means is that we have to be structured as a team to increase visibility and maximize feedback during that project time period. This will change the way in which we are actually put together and interact with each other. When we do this, it allows and actually begs for the importance of natural communication. How are we going to leverage the way people like to behave? The average person would much prefer to have a conversation than to read through 200 pages of requirements. And I can guarantee you that the understanding that they would have after the conversation would be much better than after they read the 200 pages. When you do this, now the requirements start to become clearer as they emerge. Not only do we understand what the people wanted, the business in particular wanted, but also what new things are they learning by seeing the product as it is developed. So this is where we talk about emergent requirements. Now this is very contrary to traditional approaches that say, wait a second, we had all the requirements, we're going to have a change process if you want to do that. That doesn't make sense. In your everyday life, you would never put change processes in place on yourself with your own money, with your own time. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to do that here. If we're going to be very iterative, testing now is not something that is done at the end of the process, but something that is done continuously throughout the process. And we do it in smaller and smaller chunks so that everything that is produced is known to function independently as it's supposed to, and then as you build those components, you are continuing to test them in integrated pieces of the system. So you are incrementally building and testing at the same time. What this allows us to do is not get to the end of the project and then find major gotchas as far as things that aren't working together. And then we get these repeated cycles of design, development, test, and that reduces our risk because we don't get very far off course before we know exactly where we are at. So I use the phrase, many people will say Agile is a lightweight methodology. They call it light because it doesn't have a lot of heavy processes. And while I agree that it is a lightweight methodology and that it has, while it has some processes, they are certainly not as heavy as more traditional approaches. Agile is not for lightweights. And I say that in somewhat of a joking way because in Agile, you can't fall asleep. You can't be like the school administrator who says that's the process. You have to stay very conscious. You have to actively engage with the business. You have to be transparent. You have to trust your teammates. All of those things are not easy to do. So you can't take it lightly to step into the Agile world. What we see here is that we also are going to require a lot more competent and qualified people. The process, or the absence of the process, requires that people contribute more. They can't just follow the process as they do in traditional approaches. It also asks that they learn to trust their team members. And in a lot of organizations, trust has been built or eliminated through the use of processes. We don't need to trust each other because the process is there to accommodate that. Well, when you eliminate some of that process, you're going to replace it with strong teamwork, and the foundation for that strong teamwork we'll see is trust. The next thing we want to see is a ruthless pragmatism around process and documentation. And this is where we talk about simplicity and the art of maximizing the work not done. So how much documentation do we do? Just enough and no more. How will we know that? We'll know that through regular examination of how much we're producing. And we have to be ruthless about this. The moment we start to fall asleep and say, well, that's how we did it the last time, that was good enough, we are no longer ruthlessly pragmatic. We are no longer examining and taking what I would refer to as a contrarian approach to the way in which we're going about our development life cycle. We have to be willing to take a look at everything that we're doing and challenge it and say, is that really the best way to do things? If we have an existing process, is that working the best way possible? That kind of contrarian approach with a ruthless pragmatism and strong interactions, means that you're in an environment, a landscape, that's very different from where we've worked with traditional approaches. And so don't fight it and don't wish it was different. How are you going to work with it? And that's why we refer to that as process judo. So one of the first things that people experience when they work with Agile is that I can't go asleep. I can't just do what I've always done. And it's really hard. Until eventually what they tend to do is find that it's very energizing. because it's very rewarding to see the outcome of their work. And for those of you who are working with the millennials, and I have children that are millennials now, you'll find that this generation actually is asking for this. This is what they want. They want to be strong contributors. They want to know that the work that they do makes a difference. They don't want to be a cog or a wheel in a mechanism. So let's leverage that. Let's take those people that want to be high performers, put them in an environment, and give them the freedom to do that. And this is where Agile really will start to excel as this new generation comes into the workforce in strengths.